Good morning, friends. It is wonderful to be here with you from my cozy little living room in Lincoln, Virginia. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to be with you this morning, but to also embrace this brave new technology of doing it live. I'm delighted to be with you. Thank you. So, how are you? These are unimagined as well as unprecedented times. I hope this morning to help perhaps cast a little bit of sense and context into what is doubtless for all of us the most challenging period that we have collectively faced. Like tens of millions of people across this big, beautiful, hurting land of ours over this past month, we have been streaming the Hamilton soundtrack in our house nonstop since the 4th of July weekend. It is rather amazing, enlightening, and empowering to see our origin stories as told by the present, and yet the struggle to reconcile those beautiful and imperfect promises that we have yet to keep seems to rage and burn all around us this year. So let me ask you again, how are you? Are you perhaps struggling with feeling guilty because perhaps you're not acing this whole quarantine, pandemic, homeschooling, everything on Zoom kind of life that we suddenly find ourselves immersed in? The first thing I would like to do for you this morning is to free you from that for at least the rest of the day, if I may. For here in Corona world, we need some sort of first commandment, some guiding principle, some mantra to get us on through. So, if I may, let it be this. To thine own good self first, be gentle and kind, for none of us knows the way here. None of us knows the rules. We don't even know whose hand it is we're reaching for in this fumbling darkness. But we are here to get each other through this, across this river safely, as best we can. We UUs are certainly not alone in experiencing enormous grief and loss with no end in sight. So maybe that makes it a perfect time to take stock, step back, and take a bigger view for a moment. There are lessons outside my own window even this very morning. The red-shouldered hawk circling above my house, protesting something rather loudly. The cardinal flitting from the tree to the yew bush. The squirrel carrying the black walnut away from my tree, the size of his head. They seem impervious to us and our struggles, only when we disrupt them for a moment and then quickly resuming whatever it was they were going about doing. Those leaves outside my window soon enough will give way to color, collapse and crinkle, and begin again. Grief and gratitude. I'm here this morning to celebrate the precious gift of a moment in time, preserved out of time, for all time. Perhaps that gift is here for us to revel and breathe and heal in its magic and splendor, even if only for a moment. There be another Ansel Adams, American original, sculptor of shadow and light. Will another have the patience to await the perfect moment when the elements and angles are just right? Ansel Adams was no hero, cursed with pride and foible, but like any Einstein you find, take everything you can. Seraphim of film and format, a wizard of the lens, freezing magic in a frame of stone and sand. And in a range of light, a gentleman revealed his heart, showed us treasures God in plain sight hid. And in a sacred setting, shutter clicking on the wind, let us see like Ansel Adams did. A moment is so precious in our hurry, rush lives. Seems the only way to save it is hang it over the TV. And our modern generation focused on the destination. Is it still a thing of beauty if we move too fast to see? And in a range of light, a gentleman revealed his heart, showed us treasures God in plain sight hid. And in a sacred setting, shutter clicking on the wind, let us see like Ansel Adams did. I'm a man who chases shadows. I've been known to walk from ghosts, and I strain to hear echoes of the past. His reflections in still waters, spires soar into the sky, all remind me that this heartbreak will not last. And in a range of light, a gentleman revealed his heart, showed us treasures God in plain sight hid. And in a sacred setting, shutter clicking on the wind, let us see like Ansel Adams did. There be another Ansel Adams, American original, sculptor of shadow and light. Grief at what has been lost, at what perhaps we have not appreciated as much as we wish we did at the time, for all of those souls who are no longer walking the path with us. And yet, within this time, this pandemic, this quarantine and isolation, we have found many silver onlinings, as I like to call them. When our school shut down here on March 11th, I was already on the road to New Orleans, one of the early hotspots of the pandemic. And I did a concert at the Unitarian Church there, and 2 days later I was in Austin, Texas. And by the time I got home on St. Patrick's night, the world had changed irrevocably. I have not stepped out on a stage since. So much of my life is so different now, and I have no real knowledge or even realistic aspiration that it will return to what it was before. In times like this, when things get really unsettled, I find that one of my rituals brings me great comfort, and that's to do a gratitude journal. And so for a week, I shared a blog post every day about something I was grateful for. And one thing in particular that I'm grateful for is that this is 2020 and not 1918. For here we are, able to connect with each other in our isolation, face to face from wherever we are in the world, and to be able to hold each other and lock gaze with each other and hold each other visually in our own space safely. Among the many blessings that I am grateful for, I am grateful to have that gift here with you this morning. I shall count my blessings. Count your blessings, don't count your gold. You don't need money when you're lying cold. You can't buy your way into heaven, I am told. Count your blessings, don't count your gold. Count the good deeds that you've done. Lend your hand to help someone. St. Peter's got his list, he's checking everyone. Count the good deeds that you've done. In spite of all your troubles, all you need is on your back. Believe in all your blessings, don't worry about all you lack. Count the lessons you learn each day, and let them guide you, show you the way. Follow wise words, you won't go astray. Count the lessons you learn each day. Count your blessings, don't count your gold. You don't need money when you're lying cold. You can't buy your way into heaven, I am told. Count your blessings, don't count your gold. Count your blessings, don't count your gold. And it rings, and it rings, and it still rings. I have a radical thought for you this morning. We may think that these are unprecedented times, for to us they are. But I offer you perhaps an alternate perspective from the past, from our ancestors. For those who have studied American history, or perhaps have been following the wonderful historian Heather Cox Richardson on Facebook, you may realize that, in fact, we have been here before, at this place where we're ready to tear ourselves apart in our passions. And in fact, this is who we have always been. That in many ways, the arguments that we have now that have boiled into open conflict boil down to much about how we should balance the worth of work versus the weight of wealth. I'm not sure which period of our history offers us the most lessons. Perhaps there's something from all of them, from the unfettered oligarchy that mushroomed in the demise of Reconstruction in the late 1800s, or the paper tigers of Wall Street that ruled the roaring 20s before the crash of the Great Depression, or perhaps the era of Martin Luther King and John Lewis in the 50s and 60s, the resistance of civil rights. Our ancestors teach us that being human and being civilized is not neat. Perhaps this time of turmoil that has us so on edge, so inflamed and irritated, perhaps this also is a time of great turning and opportunity. Perhaps our ancestors have a few messages for us, in fact. 2,000 years ago today, a farmer walked his fields, wondered what the land would yield before the winter snow. 2,000 years ago today, two young lovers kissed, laughed and made a wish beneath the shooting star glow. Somewhere in a far and distant future, millennia beyond imagining, as time takes away what will remain of how we lived and loved today. "2,000 years ago today, anger hurled a stone to break another's bones and keep some fool upon a throne. 2,000 years ago today, a cog in a war machine drew his last breath on a distant plain as he dreamed of home. Somewhere in a far and distant future, millennia beyond imagining, as time takes away what will remain of how we lived and loved today." "2,000 years ago today, a mama hushed her little ones, kissed them on the head and tucked them into bed, and turned her face toward the sky for blessings from on high. Prayed to guide them safe on the unknown path ahead. She wondered someday in a far and distant future, millennia beyond imagining, as time takes away what will remain of how we lived and loved today, of how we live and love So I want you to know this morning, this moment, right now, I see you. I see you here as you are, in your fear and in your power, wearing your grief and glory in all their effervescence. What if this turmoil is because this is a time of great turning, of cocooning and metamorphosis? What if these are the moments we have been called to? If that's so, perhaps let us use our fear to inform not our anger, but our empathy, for our neighbors in this human community are afraid too. And let us use our empathy to inform not our anger, but our power, to go virtually and spiritually forth into this hurting world that desperately needs a coalition of the decent and a rising tide of understanding. Despite the challenges and the darkness, maybe these are our times when we are called to be our greatest generation. When we are called to be who we are and who we aspire to be, learning, always learning, fueling the turning, checking our belief, our privilege, our bias, our heart, and simply being brave enough to reaffirm who we are. It is not complicated or difficult. It starts with a simple kindness, one hand reaching to another in this fumbling darkness. We may not have chosen the time, but the time has chosen us, in the words of John Lewis. And each of us, my friends, is indeed something worth standing for. In sweat in the noonday sun, his backseat stacked with stuff he's picked up, his beat up car barely runs. He's got 1,000,000 miles worn upon his face, but smiles as he walks my way. Lights a half-smoked cigarette as he sits down. Before I can leave, he turns to say, you gotta haul all you need from the river, build your temple up from the floor. Be grateful for every gift you get. Find something worth standing for. I've been down in the shadows about the shape I'm in, a mess made with my own hands. I could write a book with the lessons I've learned and hard luck that made this man. I've walked in the valley of darkness. I've known heartbreak, I've known loss, but I'm still standing on these 2 feet, amazed at all that got me across. So haul all you need from the river, build your temple up from the floor. Be grateful for every gift you get. Find something worth standing for. Son, I could talk till my face turns blue. What matters ain't the words you say, it's all the little things that you do. Don't be afraid to help another, 'cause when your time's up there's nowhere to hide. The walls we build to keep Thank y'all so very much for letting me be with you this morning. Namaste. Stay kind.